Okay, this is going to be a video for the Mofasest Trio. I'll say right up front that I don't wreck it. I wasted money, but I learned a lesson and I'm going to pass it on to you, and I'm not going to rip into this. I did a video, unbox it while I was talking in the background and kind of bashing on it. It serves no purpose, so I'm not even going to post that video. I'm not going to tag it onto this. It's wasting time. I bought this myself because I thought it was a good idea. The actual purchase was the ISN H40 because several people on my channel and also on Discord had said, you really ought to try the Pro. That's a good set. And I got it, and I'm going to do a video for it because I actually do like it. So thank you to the people that wrecked this. It is a good set. I wasn't said or told to go get the Trio. I got it because I'd seen some people commenting very highly of it and thought, might as well grab it. 500, ouch. But I trust the company, and I made a big mistake. If I had seen a graph, this is the lesson for this video right here. Music is, graphs are a tool, but they're a very effective tool, and depending on your situation, they might be very, very important and critical. I can hear most of the stuff that I want to. Unfortunately, I couldn't hear this or see a graph of it. If I had seen a graph of this before I bought it that looked like what I graphed, I would not have bought it. What the same would be the case with the Empire Ears Odin. If I had known what that looked like prior, I wouldn't have bought it. And that was $3,000. I actually paid $2,600 after a discount, but that's still a lot of coin, and I regret it, but a learning experience. If you can listen to something, there's no replacement for you putting something in your ears, listening to your library, and judging for yourself. Fuck everything else. Your happiness is not dictated by some squiggly line done by somebody you've never met in your life. If you're not fortunate like that, and you have to depend on that stuff, you would be looking for somebody like Critical. Critical.com is who I would recommend. He's got a large library. He's very consistent with his graphs, and you can take a set that you have and you enjoy and then go look at what that looks like on the squiggly line. Like, what does that squiggly line look like? Because I like what that sounds like. You go look at that and you come to the conclusion that that is safe. You like that, and maybe a little more bass would be okay, or a little less treble. You can use that as your baseline and then move on from there. So there's a lot of value in graphs. I try to take stuff that I get and quickly put up frequency response because it is what it is, and some people are going to make a mistake and say, that's not for me, and skip out on what is maybe a good set because they're overthinking it. But it is valuable info. And let's get to this graph. I'm speechless for a few seconds there. It's got massive bass, though it doesn't really do the damage that you might think it would, because it's kind of a psychoacoustic cancellation going on because of that 15 dB, 9 kilohertz spike with that massive dip just prior to it. There's a lot of companies that are doing this, 6 dB dip. Some of them are big, some of them are small. This is a massive one. This gain of 12, this, and this in particular is too much for me. And let me be very specific and not vague and just say, oh, he's just using a track. No. I'll be really exactly specific. Using a track that I always talk about. I talk about Led Zeppelin, When the Levee Breaks. I repeat all the time. It's on my evaluation sheet. I use it to talk about bass because the kick drum was produced to be very authoritative. It's supposed to be that way. And then everything else, the harmonica and the effects, it's really very, very produced. It's supposed to be there. I went and listened to that track because I thought the bass on this was going to just overwhelm everything because John Bonham is getting 15 dB added on to his already authoritative kick drum. And what I discovered was that the cymbals were, wow. When the Levee, 1 minute, I timestamped this so you can check yourself. 1 minute, 7 seconds is the If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll show you right here. This is his son, Jason, doing that part. Here we come. Pum, 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 pum. And then I'll go back into it. Those are massive strikes, and this is me starting in the bass section, discovering that bass wasn't sounding as much as I thought it was going to be because of the graph. And then when I got to When the Levee Breaks, which is the fourth track, I thought Ambitions as a Rider by Tupac, there's a ch, dun, ch, at the end. It sounded like potato chips being smashed in a box or something. It sounded really, really bad, but I thought, I don't know, let's move along. And then I went to When the Levee Breaks and then discovered that the cymbals were just absolutely over the top. I listened to, I'll actually go show it to you. So if you want to listen to When the Levee Breaks, listen to the intro. The bass is substantial. It's supposed to be. When you get to 1 minute and 5 seconds, you get into this first series where he's hitting the different cymbals. He's going across his kit, just like Jason's doing right here. I think he does it again, actually. Or not. Let's watch for just a second. Boom, 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 boom. Those are substantial. Those are really substantial on this set, and it's because of it's because of this. This is showing itself. The positive effect, I wouldn't call it positive, but something that I actually wrote down here all along the Watchtower. Let's look at that because there's boobs right there. So Led Zeppelin, kick drum, it is authoritative, but it's absolutely overwhelmed by the way that hi-hats and cymbals are presented massively. There's no way that you would listen to a set like this over a long period of time with music that has cymbals and hi-hats frequently struck. Even No More, No More by Aerosmith. If I can remember, I'll go to that one. But where Jimi Hendrix. This is Electric Ladyland. I love her confident smile, and I love her breasts even more. Ooh. All Along the Watchtower. This is a track that is sometimes makes me think that I don't have a good quality version, though I know it's a very, very high quality version. And on stuff like the P1 and on the Audia headphones, it sounds absolutely fantastic. But on anything and most everything else, it sounds very almost lo-fi until it gets to maybe the second. There's 3 solos in this track. Maybe the second is where it starts to sound like it's almost a totally different quality recording. Like it's a remaster that was clipped and the beginning was not remastered. So it's kind of interesting. This set plays Jimi Hendrix's guitar in a slightly odd way because of the tuning and the treble, but it sounds very clear because of the way that emphasis is. And I noted and wrote that down. All Along the Watchtower, hi-hat vocals up, kind of good. And then I starred Jimmy solo, bit odd but clear. So the harmonics of the guitar that I'm very familiar with sounded off, but the emphasis made it kind of clear. The negative was the cymbal and hi-hats were center forward, kind of boxy sounding. And then I went and listened to Aerosmith, because I've been talking about that about as long as I've been using devices like DAPs to explain the music. This is the regular version. This is the DSD. Let me go and click on this. No More, No More. At, I think, 9... The strikes are at 7 and 13 seconds if you want to check, and I recommend that you do. They were significant. What was more significant to me is that Steven Tyler is always just a little back. It's the way he's mixed in. This is so emphasized that Steven Tyler sounds front center. I've never heard that before. I've never heard Steven Tyler sound way up front on this mix because it's not mastered that way. But this, the way that this is being tuned, the emphasis of this combination of drivers is actually putting emphasis enough on Steven Tyler's vocals or harmonic or overtones enough to make him sound like in your mind, the psychoacoustical illusion, that he's actually front and center. And if you ever listen to anything else, like headphones, the Audia, or earphones, the Sony IER Z1R, you would always think that Steven Tyler's kind of back. And it may be sometimes too far back, and that's when you would think that mids are too far scooped, or there's something going wrong, or there's a late mid-bass hump. That bass is not crashing in and wiping out Steven Tyler. That treble is pulling him way up to a point that was unnatural, and the cymbals were also like in everything that I listen to. Way. I listened to Blind Faith, Can't Find My Way Home. In 27 seconds, Ginger Baker, probably one of the greatest drummers that ever lived, the guy went and battled jazz drummers. He battled them. There's albums of Ginger Baker battling drum battles with African drummers too. The guy was an absolute madman beast. There's a documentary out there about Ginger Baker. I can't remember the name of it. Somebody can leave a comment down below. I'd wreck that you watch that. Absolutely brilliant. Rest in peace to that dude. He had a very unique sound. I've been listening to that cymbal strike for quite a long time. It's super emphasized. So this isn't a set that I would recommend. I won't get into more music because everything sounds unnatural to me. That this was recommended by a lot of people and put on a level of something like the Unique Melody MEST, or that really kind of blows my mind, because the frequency graphs would indicate a very, very different tuning, and my ears and listening to this music is a very, very different presentation. Would it be appealing to you? If you listen to the music I listen to, it wouldn't be, because you would get fatigued by the upper frequency emphasis and also by the odd harmonics that are being done. It's giving a slight appeal to Hendrix's solo, though it's not sounding really like Hendrix's guitar. It's coming through clear, if that makes any sense. It is an interesting experience because it goes to show you what dramatic emphasis in certain parts of the frequency response graph, again an amplitude scale, will affect the music that you listen to. Does this giant spike actually have any negative impact? It actually does, and I gave you an example that's very specific. It's when the levee breaks, and you can start at 1 minute and 5 seconds and then glide into 107 to 120. Those strikes are way overpowering the kick drum, the famous rock and roll historical moment when the levee breaks off of the Symbols, or fourth album by Led Zeppelin, that was reviewed by magazines at the time, talking about the absolute authority that John Bonham was coming through with that. And I don't know that they knew. We now know how produced that song was, and the mixers and compressors, but that's a very famous. I've never heard Bonham's kick drum completely overwhelmed by his cymbals. I had to go look at somebody playing it around that part, and right there, going right across his kit. Boom. Those are notable. This is a set that I would not recommend, and it gives me an opportunity to remind people, trust the graphs, if for no other reason, just to calibrate your preference. Find a couple sets, one, maybe two, that you do like, you're sure you like them. Forget what everybody said, forget about reviews, and go look at what the graph says. If Critical did it, you'd be much better off. And what does that look like? Because that is a visual representation of what you probably are a fan of. And when you make purchases in the future, unlike me, I do reviews, man. I do reviews. I got stuff coming in all the time, and I made this mistake. Maybe there was a graph out there, and I didn't look hard enough. Because if I had found something that looked like this, and I'd said and thought, that's 10 dB right here, this bar, and that is from here to here, that's about 15 dB. And that is a massive gap right there. That's going to have an effect because of the emphasis there, not prior to it, and then again before. That certain overtones are being emphasized and de-emphasized. If I had seen this graph or something close to this, I wouldn't have made the purchase. I know my own taste enough that I wouldn't have bought it. And so you don't need to make that mistake in the future. It doesn't matter if I hype something or other people hype something. I always try to put the graph out there as soon as I can. Let the chips fall they may. If it's not an appealing thing, then it's going to die sooner or later anyway. Might as well get that out there. I couldn't find the graph on this. I went ahead and pulled the trigger, and I made a mistake. Next time, if you're thinking about dropping a lot of coin and you're not finding a graph, demand it from somebody that's got it in their possession that you know does graphs, and get a look at it before you pay your money. I guess that's what I want to say, instead of getting into a rant and a rage. Make an informed decision, so much as you can do in this hobby. So this is really an education. I'm not bashing on the set. It's not my thing. It gives a good visual representation on a graph of things emphasized, in particular, the guy that's right behind the graph, John Bonham, these particular instruments, they're cymbals in a drum kit. They are way over the top. They are over the top in everything that I listen to where they're present. They are dominating everything. Hi-hats and cymbals, and parts of the guitar. Vocals seem to be pushed forward, like Steven Tyler. Jimi Hendrix sounded okay. If I listen too carefully, they might sound odd, but that could be bias, me expecting vocals to be kind of borked because of the way that the overtones are really, really going up and going down. But the cymbals are undoubt. That's really happening. So you can skip this set. And graphs. There's a lot of people out there that are getting the proper tools to do acceptable graphs or better, like Critical. Get your eyes on them. Trust them. Find out what you like and start from there and move forward. Don't waste your money. Unless you're rich and you like wasting money. I got plenty of money, and this still made me feel kind of bad. But whatever. That's the way it goes. I won't even talk about is the bass good, or it changes the replay of everything I listen to in a way that's so unnatural and so different from usual that it's not even an enjoyable set. But I probably could have found a graph if I looked carefully and prevented myself from making this mistake. But I gave a tertiary little quick look, and I found one that looked like it was kind of smooth, but I thought, it looks kind of like the V14. Same company that had a version of the V14, and my mistake. Nobody's fault but mine. That's a Zeppelin title song. Segue, unintentional, and I'm out.